What's up, everyone, and welcome to the Emerald Grappling podcast. I'm your host, Darren Murphy, and today I'm delighted to be joined on the podcast by Chris Brennan. For anyone who doesn't know Chris, he is an entrepreneur and he's also the founder and owner of Coffee&Kimuras, a BJJ and MMA fightwear brand, and he's also a purple belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Chris, thanks so much for having me in your studio. Thanks for having me at training this morning in Team Torres. Shout out to Andrew, nice class, and Ola que pasa.
He's bringing back the old school. I actually stopped doing that in the vlogs, but yeah, whatever. Thanks for having me on again. Apologies for the last time, which no one's going to know, but we did record before and my internet ruined it basically. So yeah, we're back in, but at least we're doing it in person this time, so it's a bit more interactive. I'd rather doing them in person. They're just not the same online.
No, I prefer these in-person interviews. You can have a laugh, chat beforehand, and then we can be like, no, we're going to
train
cut
beforehand
that
as well.
Yeah, hence why I'm extremely red in the face. The training just took it out of me.
Yeah, that was a nice class. Some good rules in that class. Yeah,
there were some very tough rules, and it's nice technique as well. So I was happy with that. Andrew, thank you. If you're watching this, probably not, but if you are, thank you very much.
If you're not, you should be. Call them out on it.
Yeah, call them out. I'll start bombarding them online, call out videos, But Chris, just to start things off, maybe you could tell us about yourself and how you got started in Jiu-Jitsu.
So how I got started in Jiu-Jitsu is a bit of a long story, going back to playing every other sport under the sun pretty much. I played Gaelic, soccer, rugby, pretty much everything the whole way up through from being a kid up to 18. Went to college, tore my knee, tore my ACL, and just went through that whole phase of in and out of surgery for a couple of years. Got back to Gaelic, wrecked my shoulder, and I was like, you know what, this isn't for me. So I'd been doing so much gym work and rehab work in the gym that I kind of got obsessed with lifting weights and all that. Got into bodybuilding, was on the verge of stepping on stage, and got bored of the treadmill pretty much. And I was like, I need another form of cardio. So obviously I'd been watching the UFC, into boxing when I was younger as well, and so every time UFC would hit, or MMA would hit the ground, I'd be like, oh, I don't know what's going on, stand up, the usual meathead stuff. So I was like, right, I'm going to combine a new form of cardio with learning what's going on the ground in the UFC. So reached out to Andrew. Actually, I knew he was doing the Severe MMA podcast at the time, and I said, yeah, what's the story with Jiu-Jitsu in Dundalk, because he kept harping on about it in the podcast. So he essentially roped me in through one of the early podcasts. Yeah, so it started then April-ish 2016. So yeah, about 8 years or so. So yeah, it took me 7.5 years to get the purple belt, but I had a few injuries and stuff in the meantime. But as soon as I started, I was like, yeah, this is for me. I just got obsessed with it straight away. Like a lot of people do. It seems like people go one way or the other. They get obsessed with it, or it's not for them. So got obsessed with it straight away. Around the same time, I was kind of trying to start my own business in a couple of different ways. Started doing a bit of personal training, realised I didn't like training people. Started trying to develop a streetwear brand, realised it was too competitive. I was working in engineering at the time, so I was doing a lot of sourcing from Asia. So I started using that kind of experience to source clothing. That was kind of the streetwear brand thing. Then kind of thought, well, why don't I start sourcing jiu-jitsu gear? And I started buying rash guard samples from Asia, came up with the brand of Coffee&Kimuras because I was getting obsessed with coffee around the same time as getting obsessed with jiu-jitsu, and saw there was my limited experience of the jiu-jitsu community at the time. I was like, there's some weird crossover of people always being tired who do jiu-jitsu, which I completely understand now. So yeah, that was the genesis of the brand really, and I was training with sample rash guards underneath my gi for probably 7 or 8 months before I told anyone what I was doing, and had bought all those samples before I'd ever actually bought an actual rash guard from another jiu-jitsu brand, which is crazy. But yeah, then discovered, I was like, right, it's time to buy one from another brand now. Tried it out, and I was like, I'm actually onto something here. I have decent quality rash guard here. Just happened to stumble across a decent supplier, a decent material and whatever. Even it probably took, I'd say, 15 suppliers to get the one I was happy with. So yeah, developed it out from there. Got the kind of first batch around I launched it Black Friday 2018. I launched the brand and didn't make a sale on the website until January 2019. I just sold it to lads in the gym. In fairness, lads all bought it. They were like, this is actually legit, this is really good gear. So just kept it going from there on the side. At the same time, I was running, I was kind of doing freelance design, and a friend of mine was doing freelance websites and social media management and stuff. So it kind of went to COVID time. Both our kind of businesses were trying to riff whenever not to go online, and that's how we set up Zoma, which is the marketing agency, and that's the office that we're in at the minute. We have, we've built that up over the last, since kind of February 2021 was when we launched. So what's that, 3.5 years? So we're up to 10 staff now, $1.5 million in turnover, town centre office in Dundalk, and it's going really well, yeah. So that's the business side and the jiu-jitsu side all in one there.
Yeah, it's safe to say that you're extremely busy, and balance and all that must be absolutely
there's no balance. No, I think everyone in jiu-jitsu knows that there's no balance. Once like you get into training jiu-jitsu, people get obsessed to do 3 times a day. There's no balance to training. It's the same thing. I'm just like going day to day and trying to keep all the plates spinning however best I can, but I don't know, I enjoy it.
Yeah, no. As you said, everyone does get obsessed with it, and it's kind of strange. I hope you don't mind me saying this, but usually, like, people who have had like knee injuries, shoulder injuries, they usually veer away from doing anything like that. Whereas you were like, nah, I'm gonna go and dive straight into something that's going to be attacking all those limbs.
Yeah, clearly have some sort of mental deficiency, but like, it hasn't been ideal at times. Like, I still, my knee's fine now. I've had 3 surgeries on it, but it's fine. My shoulder, I've had 3 surgeries on, and I'm managing that on a daily basis. Like, I could go in and just depending on what technique we're doing, I'm gone before we even do any positional sparring or anything like that. But then I could go 3 or 4 months without it giving me any issues. So it's just one of those things I just have to manage. I don't think it's ever going to change. I've looked into getting stem cells and all that stuff, but that's just a whole different kettle of fish. Maybe someday I'll look into it. But yeah, for now it's just like I'm still competing now and again. Haven't competed in a while, but like I've gone to the Euros a couple of times and stuff like that, and it's not really affected me. So well, I could use that as an excuse, but I won't.
So do you modify your game just to basically avoid going into those areas where you know you're going to be, just say like the legs rather than takedowns? Because a lot of people do end up injuring their knees just because they don't know how to basically go behind and do the trips properly. So
yeah, I do try to, but there's only so much you can do really. If someone wants to force you into a position, you're going to be forced into that position, and that's it. But I'm trying to get away from being a dirty guard puller, which I was for a long time. But I wouldn't say I've transitioned more into being a bit more stand-up, but I have definitely tried to incorporate that more, a lot more passing rather than playing guard. So I suppose from that end, I think that's more just progressing my game over time really, rather than say working around injuries or anything like that. The injury thing, regardless, doesn't matter if you're top or bottom, there's always going to be someone that can wrap you up from somewhere. So I just manage it as I go and go through phases of different things that I like working on. At the minute, I'm not really training as much as I would have been before, which I was speaking to one of our black belts about this recently, and there's an interesting, I don't know what phrase you'd put on it, but when I'm training less, I find that my game is way more natural, versus I think the problem is when I'm in, say, competition mode. I'm not going to say camp because it's not a camp, but when I'm in competition mode of a competition coming up, I end up training 2 or 3 times a day and wrecking my body. But you're also drilling certain techniques because you're going into classes, and then you get it's almost like muscle memory that you start using those techniques when you're rolling instead of going to your instinctual natural game. So over the last while, because I haven't been training that much, I've been I try to actually go a little bit less to classes and more just to open mats. So I'm just rolling instinctively and naturally, and probably rolling better than ever now. It's just my fitness levels that aren't the same, but probably am just in terms of my general flow within a game. I'm probably a little bit less rigid and a little bit more natural. But that does kind of change seasonally depending on what we've been working on. But it's always going to change, isn't it? If your game's not developing over the course of 8 or 10 years or longer, then what's the point?
That's it. Like, and I suppose now as you're like gone up through the belts and that, and you know, you've said you've picked up little injuries along the way, do you prioritize your recovery?
I should, but I don't. I actually got a whoop. I got a whoop about a month ago. The trial's just up today, and I kind of had an element of data anxiety concern that I didn't want to get one for a long time. So I give into it, and I wasn't getting enough data from terms of like I can't wear it when I'm rolling, obviously, but I just got the shorts the other day. So I wore them last night and just there this morning at training. I haven't looked at the data from today yet, but already the data from training last night, just from one session, having that on and seeing how my body's reacting and recovering today. Like, it told me not to train today, but I still trained and I felt fine. So I'm going to use that a little bit more, but I am very in tune with my body. I know I am instinctively, that I know how my body feels, like from years of playing different sports and bodybuilding and being interested in kind of nutrition side and that as well. I do know instinctively when my body needs a break, but sometimes you just can't give it a break. You just have to, your mind's weaker than your body a lot of the time. So there's that side of it too, but I definitely should prioritise recovery a bit more. But when you're running 2 businesses, building a house, getting married and trying to train all around that as well, there's just no time for recovery really. And just I'm in that phase of life now where recovery is, although it should be a priority, it's definitely not. It's way down the list.
And as I said before, Chris is a very busy man, so he just named off a number of reasons why. And just to circle back on Coffees and Kimura, you mentioned how you came up with the name because you like coffee and obviously Kimuras, and the brand.
The Kimura thing as well, that was the technique that Andrew taught us in the very first class I went to, and I love alliteration as well, so I was a bit of a sucker for that. So I was like, right, that's perfect combination. I've never really put that story out there, which is probably a bit stupid, but I'm working on a video to go on my YouTube channel that will kind of go through that story and how it started and go into that story I just told in a little bit more detail, and it'll go into that a bit more.
Oh, nice, can't wait to watch it. And for anyone who doesn't know, Chris does a weekly vlog on YouTube where he shows you the behind the scenes of running 2 businesses, training, just life in general. Highly recommend it. That's how I actually discovered you first. But I was saying offline that when I started training first, I actually bought some of your first range of stuff. It was the spats with the coffee beans going up the side.
The old school ones. Yeah. Frame those. They'll be worth money in a few years.
Will do. And even the anti-decaf, the full black one with the big logo on the back. And I was going to wear them today, and I was like, nah, better not, just in case. He's like, look at this guy wearing all the coffee Kimura gear. Not
full shilling. Well, you were wearing the gi. We got a nice propaganda picture afterwards.
That's very true. And it's a good gi. And you started off with doing the rash guards, and then you've branched into doing the gis.
Yeah, the gis took a long time to develop. I wanted to make sure they were right because it got a reputation for the no-gi gear being very good, and the leisure wear ranges as well, that I wanted to make sure that the effort I put into the gis was just as good. And yeah, look, I was on the verge of releasing it. I probably was trying to rush it a little bit before Black Friday last year because I wanted to get them out in time, and I was just rushed it a little bit, and I was just about to place an order, a bulk order, with the supplier I was using at the time, who were, say, in the Far East, whereas I was like, no, there's definitely better out there. So I went more to the Middle East, and kind of went through a few suppliers over there. So it's the same thing with the gis. I've probably gone through 10 or 12 suppliers to get a good quality gi. It's probably taken 3 years to get there, but yeah, really, really happy with what we have now. We've a couple of new ones coming out in the next couple of months as well, different materials, a bit higher spec, more premium, and a couple of unique designs that I want to do some limited edition drops with some unique I'm just going to say unique designs. We'll leave it at that. I'd say by the time this podcast comes out, if you watch one of my vlogs, I'll probably have released a design in that by then. But yeah, it's just trying to, like, the whole brand is really just a bit of creative expression. Over the last year and a half, it has grown a lot to the point where I'm going, right, well, this is more than a hobby now. This is a legitimate business, but it is still a form of creative expression for you, and that's what it was from the start. So that's what I want to do. I don't just want to do simple gis with a patch on the sleeve and a bit of nice lining inside. Like, they do look cool. I really like them, and they seem to be going down well. A lot of the sizes are sold out at the minute. We've a restock coming tomorrow as we're recording this, which hopefully will all be sold out by the time this podcast comes out. But everyone's been enjoying it. Everyone's been complimenting them. Literally haven't had a bad word about them yet. And I just want to kind of add a bit of creative expression to that and get some, you see people in unique gis, like Tatami have that pink one. Like, it's just a pink colour. There's nothing special about the gi. They've just made a unique coloured gi, that's all, instead of the traditional colours. So I'm going to try and branch out into that and get a couple of limited edition ones out before the end of the year, hopefully.
Oh, nice. I'm looking forward to that. Maybe we'll see like a dark brown, different colour one.
Yeah, there might be a brown in there.
Ah, nice, nice. And you said you've been running this since you basically started training. What has been the biggest lesson you've learned from starting a clothing brand, fightwear brand?
It's not as easy as I thought it was going to be, as every business is the same though. Yeah, like, what have I learned from it? I've got to know a lot of people in the community, in the jiu-jitsu community, and it's really, really cool to get speaking to people from different cultures even as well. Like back in April, I was over in Luxembourg with a couple of young guys that I started sponsoring, Liam Veras and Luca Veras, and I actually got in touch with them through their older brother won purple belt Euros this year and got promoted to brown belt, and the youngest lad Luca won blue belt juvenile, but he's an absolute monster. Like, he's 16, he's about 86 kilos, he's put on like 15 kilos in a year. He was supposed to he won Pans then shortly after that as well. He was supposed to go to Worlds but couldn't make it. But yeah, just going over there and spending a couple of days with them and seeing how obsessed, you think like some people around here, like a couple of lads in the gym there pretty much train full time. They're training 3 or 4 times a day, or like essentially all day. But then you train with someone like that and you see how they live around it. The lads are still in school, getting up at 6 in the morning, going to school, training at lunch, back to school, back in the gym in the evening to train the kids' class, coach the kids' classes, then train themselves twice, back home, eating at like 12 o'clock, and then back up at 6 again. And honestly, 2 days training with them, I was crippled for a week. Like, it's crazy level of training. Fair enough, they're 16 and 17 and I'm way past that, but it's impressive to meet these people and just see, like, their dad's Brazilian, he's a Luxembourg national karate coach, really interesting family. And yeah, even speaking to, we have a couple of new sponsored athletes as well. Jan Piquepau did really well at the Worlds recently, and Aleph Brito as well. Just speaking to these guys and getting to know them and seeing how one kind of activity can be viewed so differently depending on where you're from, or you can kind of get caught up in your own bubble in your gym and think, this is jiu-jitsu, but then that's why people like cross training, like going to other gyms and experiencing different styles and different attitudes and that. So yeah, I think starting the brand has exposed me to all of that, which I would definitely not have got otherwise. There's just no way. So yeah, it's been really interesting, and I suppose it's pushed me to compete a little bit more as well. I felt like I should be, if I'm running a clothing brand or a fightwear brand, let's say, that I should be competing a bit more, and pushed me to say go to the Euros and stuff like that, which I don't know if I would have done otherwise. I probably would have, because I'm inherently competitive, but can't guarantee that. Like, but it has been, there definitely has been a factor to push me towards doing things like that.
Leading from the front, essentially.
I suppose so, yeah, you could put it like that, I suppose, yeah.
And just to touch on, like, since we last talked, you mentioned you've been in touch with so many new athletes signed to the brand. Where would you like to see the brand going in the next 5 years?
I just want to keep growing. Like, there's no obviously I have ambitions and numbers in my head and stuff, but it's just, if I get a bit of growth every year, a bit more visibility every year, more opportunity for that creative expression on a continual basis, get speaking to more people in the jiu-jitsu community, more athletes. I want to put on a few more events. The idea came to my head a little bit too late this year to do it, but hopefully next year we'll do a bit of a tour around Ireland, popping into gyms, setting up kind of there's so many coffee trucks and stuff around Ireland now, like horse box stuff, getting them outside the gym and doing a bit of an open mat and different things like that. And I want to put on a couple of competitions style events, which, yeah, we've had one recently that I know you were going to mention it to me, but I might as well just bring it up now. Was SubVault. I had this idea. I've had this idea for a year and a half. I actually stole it from Graham Boylan, the Cage Warrior CEO, although I didn't steal it without his permission. So I'm just clarifying that. But
influenced.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, influenced. So the idea is that instead of time, there's money on the clock. So the money counts down after. So let's say you agree 5-minute match, whatever. Let's say £500. 500 euros. I'm just saying pounds because we ran it in Oma the first time. But so essentially after 15 seconds, the money starts counting down, and if it gets to 0, no one wins anything. If you get a sub within that, clock stops, money stops, and you win whatever's on the screen, which turned out to be very, very expensive when we ran 2 trial matches on Virtus MMA recently in Oma, where Conor Marin won, I think it was £472, got a tap within like 30 seconds, and Jacob Leonard got 420 something, I think, something like that. Yeah, 2 quick taps, which turned out to be very expensive. So I was like, yeah, the anxiety of running a full event of this, I don't know if that's going to be the one. But I spoke to my brother-in-law actually that evening, who doesn't have anything to do with jiu-jitsu, not really interested in it or anything like that, and I was kind of explaining the concept to him and how it went, and we kind of come up with a structure of an event that would... The main problem that a lot of people said to me on the night, and I knew anyway, was the potential for athletes colluding with each other and say, right, you tap and we'll split the money. But my rebuttal to that was, well, if someone said that to you, would you tap? And they'd be like, no, I'd ask them to tap. I'm like, exactly. But I think we come up with a structure of an event where you'd be disincentivized to tap, to potentially get into have different tiers of money that you can get up to, based on winning essentially. Yeah. So we might run that across that structure can run across multiple events as well. So we'll see. I have a few ideas around, like, I want to do it. If I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it properly. And obviously money in jiu-jitsu and rewarding the athletes is a very, very topical subject at the minute with CGI and everything that's happening next week. So that's kind of, I wanted to play off the back of that. So that's why I'm starting to do it now, even though I've had that idea for a while. It's given me a bit of a kick up the arse to actually do it. And it did go well. Look, it was an MMA event, so not necessarily a jiu-jitsu crowd, and people still bought into it. People still thought it was exciting. Obviously, some people there who are involved in jiu-jitsu enjoyed it, thought it was a good idea. Obviously, the 2 lads who won thought it was a great idea. But yeah, I'm working with the guy from Virtus MMA to see if we can do something again soon. I might do it on another MMA show. Do maybe 1 or 2 more test matches, really just to get a bit of content that we can promote a full event then. But we'll see. Yeah, it went well though. I was pleasantly surprised, to be honest. I didn't know which way it was going to go. I didn't know if it was going to be an absolute flop. If it was, whatever. I just wish the matches had gone a bit longer, so it wouldn't have cost me so much to run it. But no, it was definitely a worthwhile thing, and hopefully we can make it grow legs and get something out of it.
You mentioned the SubVault idea. I'm going to pitch a tournament style idea to you now.
Let's go for it.
Right. So my idea is you could either do an 8 or a 16 person bracket.
Okay.
Invitational only.
Okay.
You could do the show, which is grand, but after each match, as it ends, whatever that money is put into a bigger bank. So all the competitors' money goes in, and whoever makes it to the final, winner gets all.
That's along the lines of what I'm thinking for the full event. Now, there's a couple of ways I was thinking of doing that. There's obviously so if we combine that with what I was thinking with the tiers, so let's use €500 as an example. So you start off, the first match is a €250 match, second one's 500, next one's 750, next one's 1,000, and the winner of 250 gets a chance at the 500 winner. The winner of the 500, and then if they beat the 500 winner, they get a chance at the 750 winner, and you work it up that way. Or you can just keep it as a one flat rate and go, yeah, well, do you want a rematch? Winner takes all. It's up to the winner then. So I don't know. There's a few ways of doing it. But yeah, we'll workshop it out. Might do a mini closed door event someday with no money on the line just to try it out. Yeah. I suppose there has to be a little bit of money on the line, but we'll see.
A few coffees, they'd be grand. But maybe a bit of merch, keep them going.
yeah. Free rash guard or something. Hopefully that'll keep them happy.
But no, definitely. If you run that event, really looking forward to it, because when I was watching your vlog and I came up, I was like, that is actually a really interesting one, especially with CGI just around the corner.
Yeah, it's so topical, yeah.
It's insane, and I know you're going to be watching it. I'm definitely going to be watching it, so I think I'm most looking forward to the Gabby and Craig Jones match. That's just going to be sick.
I love that that's happening in 2024. It's perfect, especially with all the bullshit around the Olympics recently. It's like, this is fantastic timing.
Yeah, absolutely.
He's nailed it, in fairness.
And the interviews, everything leading up to it, he is a marketer, true and true.
I don't even think he's not. I don't think it even is that. I think he's just having fun with it, and that's the main thing. And I think everyone's getting that vibe that he's enjoying what he's doing. And I try to do that myself at a much smaller scale, obviously, where I'm literally just having fun running a fightwear brand and running a marketing agency and doing the vlogs every week. I'm just having fun with it. Like, we only have one shot at this life thing. Like, you might as well have fun with it. Do what you want to do. Don't take it too seriously. I don't want to get all deep and introspective, but it is literally just have a bit of crack with it. Like, there's the Irish attitude of sure, it'll be grand, but there's also an Irish attitude of who are you to like think that you're above us or anything like that. I don't think it's any of that. Like, just let people do what they're going to do and have a bit of fun. That's the way I look at it. And Craig Jones certainly is having fun with it.
Did you see his interview, him and Gabby, with Renato?
Oh, that sit down thing. I didn't watch it, no.
I would highly recommend it. It was probably one of the most comical things to watch.
I saw a couple of clips from it, were funny, yeah.
It's that if anyone was on the fence for watching CGI, that would just completely put you like, okay, I'm definitely watching that. So
the pit wall, that idea that they've borrowed, inspired by karate combat, that's a great idea. When he threw up that triangle on Phil Rowe at Karate Combat the first time, I was like, this is really interesting to add that in, especially from a jiu-jitsu invitational point of view, where you think like, well, how do you do it? All right, there's, say, the events where the mat is on the stage and then you've raised seating all looking down on it, or then you have the Metamoris style where you have a raised mat and everyone's looking at it at eye level essentially. Don't think neither of them are great. Like, obviously the tiered seating is better because you can actually see, but I think having tiered seating with a pit, it just creates a cooler atmosphere. It's such a good idea. So it'll be interesting to see how they do that just from a jiu-jitsu point of view with CGI.
Absolutely. And one of the things that like I don't like about ADCC, and people are probably going to be giving off about this, but running the 3 matches at the same time, like obviously when you're watching from home, you could be watching one match, but you know the match you want to watch is on another one, and it's annoying trying to flick between the 2 screens.
Yeah, trying to watch 2 at the same time is always irritating. But yeah, especially when you have a tournament of that standard with athletes of that standard, you pretty much want to watch almost every match. So I understand like they have a lot of matches to get through. It must be tough to run, but they're getting enough money for it, so let them at it.
Absolutely. And just what's your official prediction for the under 80 kilos and over 80 kilos?
Oh, I need to see the list. Yeah, when you told me you were going to give me the questions and I said no, I should have said yes because I need to see the list. Wait there, I'll pull up the list.
Okay. Please hold while we are retrieving the list.
For CGI, yeah.
Yeah.
All right. That's under 80 and over 80. Okay. So, under 80 prediction.
It's the most stacked division.
So stacked, like it's unbelievable. Like the Rotolos are going to be hard to look past. Andrew Tackett's doing really well. Ono Flanagan is big for 80 kilos. Lucas Barboza. I don't know, man.
It's one of those setups where it literally anyone can
I'm going to say
it.
one of the Rotolos. I'm not going to name one. One of the Rotolos. That's my call for the under 80. Over 80. It's not going to be Pat Downey anyway. Just going to hate on Pat Downey. Luke Rockhole's going to pull his dick out or something and do something stupid. Owen Livesey could be a dark horse for that one. He'd be a nightmare.
The only thing is he likes to hit the throw and then just admire his work. He
yeah,
doesn't
that's
follow
a fair
up.
point.
Whereas if you look at the bracket, if he wins his match and Nicky Rod wins his, they're going to be facing each other, which I'd like to see. I know they had that match in quintet, but that was more of a shoving match more than anything.
Yeah, I think Livesey would beat him. So I'm going to say dark horse Owen Livesey. That's my prediction.
Okay.
I'll put this back in flight mode now so it doesn't wreck the rest of the podcast. That's my prediction. Owen Livesey is going to win the over 80 kilos and going to win $1 million.
Okay, and this podcast is going to be released after CGI. So if Chris is right, comment below. If he's wrong, don't comment at all. But no.
If he's wrong, comment and slate me for an absolute terrible call there.
Unsubscribe from his YouTube account.
No, absolutely don't do that. Subscribe to me so you hear more terrible predictions in future.
Perfect. And and just to kind of tie back to Coffee and Kimuras, I've been to a number of competitions over the last few years, and I always see people wearing your merchandise. I've even seen it on the UFC Fight Pass, like on some of the events. Just from everywhere that you've probably seen it tagged as well. What moment, is there any moment that has stood out the most for you for seeing it?
For seeing the brand somewhere?
Yeah.
It was cool to see Jan Pikapau on the podium at Worlds this year. It would have been nice if he only lost by an advantage in the semi-final. It would have been really nice to see him in the final with the dark arena and just the lights on the mat and all. That would have been really cool, which unfortunately didn't get to, but it was still really cool just to see him on the podium. But the one really standout one was Marcelo Cohen was the very first athlete we sponsored. He actually reached out when the Coffee and Kimuras Instagram had about 150 followers, and it was like, essentially, he's the king of Kimuras, has a load of Kimura instructionals on BJJ Fanatics. He's like, yeah, I'm sponsored by a coffee shop as well, let's do something together. So just sent him over a load of gear, and we've been working together since, still working with him. But when Mikey Mizumeshi moved back over to no-gi, Marcelo was his second or third match no-gi, and Marcelo was wearing a pair of Coffee and Kimuras spats against Mikey Mizumeshi. Fair enough, Mikey beat him, I think he triangled him. But just to see that, I was like, oh, that's slick. Like at the stage we were at as a brand, I think that was 2019. Like just to be on a stage with someone like that, and Joe Rogan was sitting mat side watching it. Yeah, that was really cool. Just at the stage we were at, it really, really stood out, and it's something I still look back on and go, fuck, that was cool. But yeah, the Jan Pikapau one was pretty cool as well. There's been a few, but yeah, they're probably the main two.
Nice.
But then seeing people like, for example, grappling industries in Dublin, or like the Irish Open even, or Empire in Belfast, and things like that. I'm walking around, and obviously I'm wearing Coffee and Kimuras gear. You have to rep all the time, always on brand. But seeing people wearing the gear, for whatever, wearing a hoodie or a t-shirt, but wearing rash guard and shorts and competing in them, like inherently when you go to compete, I always look in the drawer and go, right, what's my favourite one? What do I want to wear for this one? And I usually end up wearing the same style of one. I love our Americano one, that range. It's one of my favourite ones. That's usually the one I'll compete in. But then to see people wearing Coffee and Kimuras gear in competition, I'm like, firstly, they trust that the gear is going to hold up, it's not going to rip on them and be a nightmare when they're trying to compete, but also that they think, oh, well, this is one of the coolest pieces of fightwear that I have in my collection, or whatever way you want to put it. It's so cool, and they don't know who I am, I don't know who they are a lot of the time, but just to see them, just see people walk around and bumping past them, it puts me off, like it does. But when I'm competing myself, I'm like, oh, trying to get in the zone or whatever you want to call it, and I'm seeing people walking past, I'm like, fuck, that's so cool. That is probably the coolest part of it, is just to see it, like people rocking around and competing in it, just general day to day, not high level athletes. Like it's obviously cool, lads wearing it on Fight Pass and on Flow Grappling and big events. And Austin Daffron, oh actually forgot about this one, earlier this year Austin Daffron won Combat Jiu-Jitsu Worlds wearing a custom set. So fair enough, it's a custom set, it's not a standard set, but it's still cool. Like he's a guy we've been working with since about 2020 as well. So yeah, look, there's been a lot of moments, and on a daily basis, just people ordering this. It's a little thrill. I still get it, like whatever, 5.5 years after we made the first sale, just when see orders coming in on the website is still so cool. Like I'll never get sick of it, and I appreciate everyone who orders, honestly, from the bottom of my heart. It does make me so happy, and it's like for me to bring something from my head into reality, and for people to think, yeah, I'll spend my hard-earned money on that. I cannot thank everyone enough who's bought from, including yourself. And
I won a free gi as well off you, which was very cool.
And oh, you did? Yeah, I forgot about that actually. Yeah,
it's a great quality gi. So, and I wore it today so that you can.
And you're not just saying that because you got it free?
No, because you absolutely mauled me. So it's
Nah, I don't know about that, man. Don't know.
But no, it's really cool, and especially when you see people like around Ireland wearing it, it must hit better because you're like, these are local people, they're supporting a local business.
Yeah, there's that element too, but then I get random orders like South Korea. Israel, like Australia, New Zealand, Singapore. I don't know, the list is endless really. I've gone all over the world, and I don't do the fulfillment myself anymore, thankfully, because trying to organise shipping, well, it wasn't too bad when it was just a rash guard. Trying to organise shipping a gi to South Korea would have been a nightmare, but yeah, we kind of have a company that looks after that end of it for me now, which is it's the most tedious part of a clothing brand. But yeah, just to be sending orders to different parts of the world is so cool.
Nice. It's gone global, so.
Oh yeah, it's been global from the start, to be honest. Like, it's not I'm not trying to be cocky with this or anything, but just that's the nature of social media, and that's our primary form of marketing. There is no real other form of marketing in jiu-jitsu. It's social media and athletes, which essentially then is just their social media. So there's no mainstream media. Get conspiracy theorists back up on this one, but there's no legacy media, traditional forms of media really in the sport. No decent ones anyway. So yeah, that's the only real form of marketing. So inherently you're reaching people all over the world anyway. So yeah, it's just making shipping costs viable that they can actually buy off you. That's the main thing, yeah.
And you've touched on the social media elements. So I'd imagine you probably get hundreds, if not thousands, of messages from up and coming athletes looking to get sponsored. Whether it's your local blue belt who just won like a grassroots competition, to people who were probably competing at Pan Ams, Worlds, Europeans. What advice would you give to someone who's looking to market themselves to get a sponsorship?
Yeah, look, we get these messages all the time, and Austin Dalpra was actually over a couple of years ago, and I did a podcast with him as well, and he asked me the same thing, even coming from a viewpoint of having reached out and sent that message and got sponsored. And I've tried to condense it into an easy answer to give advice to people every time they send a message, but there is an intangible element to it that you can look at someone and say, oh, they have an it factor of some sort. But what you can do to at least put yourself in a position to have the potential of getting a sponsorship is essentially having an audience. There's no way around it. If you have 300 followers, a brand isn't going to sponsor you. I hate to be ruthless or harsh about it, but they're not. You don't have ultimately what the brand needs from a sponsored athlete is a return on investment. If we're paying someone, or just even giving them gear, giving them custom gear, promoting them on our social media, that's valuable real estate from a brand point of view, that you could be promoting products, etc. You could be promoting the brand story, but instead you're essentially promoting an athlete. You don't necessarily need to be competing. Competing helps. You definitely don't need to be winning. Once you're active and showing that you're really bought into the lifestyle, the first thing actually I would say, going back a step, is if you want to be sponsored by a brand, buy something from them. Don't reach out to a brand and say, oh, I love your gear, I want to be sponsored by you. And then I look up your name on the back end of the website and go, well, I've never ordered from you, so how do you know you love the gear? So I'm like, yeah, especially within jiu-jitsu and MMA, there's very few brands that have a physical presence or have a presence in a physical retail location anywhere that you can kind of bypass and say, oh, I bought it here. They're going to know. They're going to be able to look up and see if you've bought it from them. And if you haven't, how are you supposed to say, oh, I'd love to rock your gear all the time? No, you just want free gear. Come on, it's too transparent. So, yeah, build up an audience. That's a whole other conversation. That's a whole other side to it. Yeah, fair enough, I run a marketing agency. How do you build up an audience? Look, I have less than 1,000 followers on Instagram. I've been doing YouTube videos for a year and a half now nearly, and I still haven't built that up. It's not easy. I know it's not easy, but if you can focus on that, try and obviously not let it distract from your training too much, and just keep progressing. Especially if you are successfully competing, brands will keep an eye on you. So that's you already have a leg up there. Even if you're not, it's fine. You can still pump out content. You can providing value and making sure that you're getting attention, and that's how you're gonna get the attention of brands essentially. Or don't be afraid to reach out to brands either. I don't mean to say don't send me a message. I'll tell you what you're missing. I'll look at your profile and say, well, you need to have X amount of content. You're not posting enough. You haven't obviously built up the follower count or whatever. But yeah, it's just about put yourself in the brand's shoes and say, if I was running a brand legitimately, if I didn't know me, would I sponsor me? And I think that's the easiest way to look at it. And that's something I've started to do myself with a lot of things. Taking a step back and going, like, looking at my own social media and going, if I didn't know me, if I wasn't me, would I follow me? Would I be interested in my story? And like, the data will tell you your answer. If it's not growing, then you're not doing, there's something you're doing wrong. So yeah, look, it's a whole minefield to get into, but the main thing is just being consistent with your social media presence, building up an audience, because that's ultimately, you need an audience to be able to sell to, so the brand can get return on investment.
And you don't want to be someone who only posts maybe once every 6 months, and then even at that, it's probably not even jiu-jitsu related, and then reaching out to these companies. You just got to be consistent. Even it just reflects like training. You got to be consistent, keep going, doing it. You're going to improve, and then you'll get the attention.
Like, perfect example is that guy I spoke about earlier, Luan Veras, who's now sponsored by Show Your Roll. I reached out to him when he won Purple Belt Euros earlier this year. What I was doing all of that week was watching everyone who had come, who had medalled in, say, pretty much every division, every adult division, and looking at their social media, seeing firstly if they were sponsored already, secondly if their activity was decent. Even if they were sponsored already, I reached out to a couple who were, it turns out, were kind of coming towards the end of their existing sponsorship, so it was still worth my time reaching out to them. But then there was some who, like, firstly either didn't have a social media presence at all, or I couldn't find them easily, had won, say, brown belt lightweight Euros, horrible division to win.
Yeah.
Like, in terms of, obviously a great division to win, I mean horrible in the best sense. But then you look up and they're like, they've posted 3 times in the last 4 years, and it's all been kind of, oh, here's me and my girlfriend at the beach, here's me and my mother on Mother's Day. Like, to be honest, that is not going to get you a sponsorship. Like, fair enough, maybe those people don't want it, that's fine. Like, I have no problem with that. Not everyone wants that. Some people just want to train, compete, and go home and go about their lives. But if it is something that you really want to do, you really want to get, you want to make a living out of jiu-jitsu, you want to be sponsored, look, it's not the be all and end all either. But if you do want to do that, you need to really kind of take a step back and form a strategy around your social media, because that is kind of going to be the core of it.
I suppose the next question I do have for you, where do you see the future of jiu-jitsu heading? Is it going to be more gi orient or no gi orientated? Will we see the return of the gi, or what's your opinion?
A lot of people kind of talk about the gis dying off and all of this. Honestly, if I look at it purely from sales data for the brand, as soon as we drop the gi, like, the gi sell way better than the no gi gear. So I don't know where this kind of rhetoric of gi is dead has come from. I think it's just that no gi athletes are more active on social media. It's back to social media. Like, you have the usual ones, everyone knows them, but they're just more active. That's all it is. It's probably a bit more exciting to watch. Yeah, fair enough. I think the idea with SubVault, like, the main part of that idea is to try and, obviously we did it as a no gi event because it was on an MMA show as a test match, but the idea is to make gi jiu-jitsu more watchable, to get people who don't do jiu-jitsu watching it. Because yeah, fair enough, like, even for myself, like, I train a lot more in the gi than I do no gi, just because there's more availability of classes within the gym and stuff. But I think that gi can be exciting to watch if the right incentive is there in the matches, and that's what I'm going to hope to do with SubVault. But I still think that it probably is bigger than no gi still. Look, you have the wrestling element, and you'll get people coming in like Nicky Rod, for example, who just have just pure athletic freaks and will do well in no gi.
Yep.
Versus in the gi, you need to be more technical, and you need to be more, I don't want to say talented, I don't really agree with that word, but you need to be more committed maybe. Yeah. But I think for the future of jiu-jitsu it's always gi jiu-jitsu is going nowhere. Let's be honest about it. Like, it's not. It is still probably bigger. Maybe we have a different perspective on it because we live in a cold country and we don't mind training in the gi. It'd probably be different if I lived somewhere that was 40 degrees all the time. But I do think both are around to stay. They're kind of separating into almost 2 different sports at this stage. Which do I prefer? I like watching both, to be honest. Like, I like events like Polaris where they put on an odd gi match the no-gi matches can be fucking boring as well. Like, let's be honest about it. It can just be a stalemate of two lads collar tying and just pushing each other back and forward. Like that, was it Owen Livesey and the Russian guy on the last Polaris? I don't know if it was the last one or the one before. They just literally pushed each other around for a few minutes. I was like, this is fucking boring, man. Like,
Yeah.
that's why you need some sort of an incentive. But like, you're going to get boring matches on both sides of the sport. You're going to get exciting matches on both sides of the sport. So look, the both here, neither one's dying off. Neither one's better than the other. Like, I like both. So let's just everyone just get on about it and stop arguing. Like, I don't know why, but there's just, I suppose it's just a general societal thing now that people just love arguing about things. They want to have something to argue about. Just try and both shut the fuck up and move on. Like,
No, 100%. Like,
there's your soundbite to put out as a clip.
yeah. For myself, my timetable works with the gi, but I prefer the gi myself. I like having those grips. I like, just being able to like grind the pressure on the people, which you probably didn't get seeing today because I was doing I don't even know what I was doing today, just like going around like a spinning top at times. But I prefer the gi, and as you said, like a lot of people are like, oh, the gi matches are boring, but it depends on the competitor. Like if you watch a Tainan Dalpra match, man,
I'll watch him all day. I am obsessed with that man. Honestly, he's so good. That just every match there's always something to it. He's never in a boring match. So you tell me Guy's dead. Watch Tainan Dalpra matches back to back to back and tell me Guy's dead. It's like, no,
it's a masterclass. Every match is a masterclass, and every run he does, you'll see he's implementing something new, and you're going to see everyone is going to go on to whatever platform they're consuming their videos, watching that, studying him, and then breaking it down. Like if you have competitors like that, you are not going to have boring matches. Whereas you have lads who, I even said it to Patrick Sheridan when we were doing our podcast, you have people who will play the game and try and win by advantage. That's boring.
Yeah, and you're going to get that, especially in IBJJF competition, because you need to kind of conserve energy and all that stuff. But if you're in an invitational match, but even Tainan doesn't do that. Tainan just goes out for a kill, 30 seconds, he's done, on to the next match. But if you're in an invitational, it should be more exciting. It isn't always the case, but yeah, look, there's other athletes as well. Fabricio Andrea is another one that I absolutely adore. I just love watching him. He's so fun to watch. Gi and no gi. That what was that invitational he did recently where he got to the final and he was one of the lightest people in it?
Polaris.
Was it Polaris? Yeah, it was the Polaris. That
kind of
open weight,
against, wasn't it?
Grand Prix thing that they did. Yeah. Like, yeah, it's no gi, but like, it doesn't matter if you watch him in the gi or no gi. It's unbelievable to watch. Yeah, it's same with Tainan. So yeah, okay, it depends on the athlete too. If they want to make it exciting, they'll make it exciting. I like the gi because it can slow things down sometimes when I'm tired, and I think honestly that's why some actual top athletes prefer the gi and won't move over to no gi, because they just know they're not fit enough and they can use the gi and control you a little bit more, and they don't have to worry about slippiness and not having grips, etc., etc. Yeah, I don't know. It's just an excuse, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you see Craig Jones saying about it, anytime he's doing a match, he wants it like under like 12 minutes, hasn't got the cardio, and you're just thinking, maybe he should do a few like super fights in the gi, slow things down, take it easy. But then again, can't heel hook everyone then.
Or just do 5-minute matches and go hell for leather.
Yeah. Personally, I prefer seeing like shorter time matches, because who wants to sit there and watch a 15-minute sweat fest of guys or girls just clubbing each other, as you were saying, pushing back and forth, and then you have like the ref there telling them, come on, activity, do something.
There's nothing better than a 15-minute match that's actually exciting, but there is very few. It's very tough to do a full 15-minute match and keep it exciting. Let's be honest about it. I think I'll probably consider that for SubVault as well, in terms of just keeping it short and snappy, because yeah, it can get very tedious. Everyone knows that Jiu-Jitsu's tiring, and there's no way to train for it other than doing it. I know during lockdown, let's say the original one, going running 5Ks, 10Ks, because it was all I could do. Then I went back to Jiu-Jitsu and lads are like, oh no, I did nothing for the last 6 months. And I have my fitness, they're wrecking me. My fitness is through the floor. I'm like, how? It's just because you just cannot train for Jiu-Jitsu conditioning other than just doing Jiu-Jitsu. So yeah, just everyone in the gi, just start training harder.
Yeah, absolutely. Get those grips and just slam everyone back down to the mat.
Yeah, face plant everyone. Yeah, love it.
Collar drags.
All day.
All day, absolutely. That's my go-to. And yeah, if they do like the similar format, where in Masters they have the shorter matches.
Oh yeah, that's why I keep going to Masters. I was like, as soon as I was 29, turning 30 that year, I was like, I'm going to Masters. Fuck this 6-minute match stuff.
Yeah, no, me and one of my teammates, Paul, shout out Paul, when we were doing the Galway International, we were doing the adult bracket, and we were both like 29 at the time, and we got mauled by these, well, I don't know about Paul, but I got mauled by this young lad who was like maybe 18, trains like 3-4 times a day, whereas I do like maybe 2 sessions a week.
Yeah.
And I remember just walking off the mat, both of us at the same time were like, yeah, I can't wait for Masters, it's going to be so much easier.
Yeah, no, I was doing that as well, where I was going to international competitions, I was doing Masters, and I was doing adult competitions at home in Ireland. I was always doing adult, and then the last couple of Empires I was against one particular guy from Belfast. He's like 17 now, maybe 18. Absolutely destroyed me in both matches. I was like, nah, it was pure, like it was pure cardio. Like, it's not, he probably is a bit better than me, but purely down to cardio. I was like, I cannot compete with a 16, 17 year old. Like, if I look at myself when I was 16, 17 compared to what I am now, I would have absolutely, even with no jiu-jitsu knowledge, I'd probably still wreck me now. So there's no point me trying to compete with them lads. Like, yeah, fair enough, if I had a full training schedule and it was all I had to focus on, it'd probably be fine, but it's not the way life is it?
No, unfortunately not. Chris, just want to say thank you so much for being on the podcast, having me here in Soma podcast studio. The last question I have for you, if you have any exciting projects coming on the horizon, if people want to reach out, maybe get some of the Coffee&Kimuras merchandise, which is the best places to reach you, and what have you got coming up?
We've a couple of cool designs in the works with Coffee&Kimuras, gis and no gi gear. Potentially one that you ran past me beforehand as well, so we'll see how that goes. I like the design, so we might put that into production. The lines up with something that I've been kind of thinking about for the last while. So yeah, there's probably some limited edition drops coming later this year. Best places, well, go to coffeekimuras.com. I actually have the new domain now, coffeeandkimuras.com. I was able to get my hands on that one too, so go to either one of those. You'll be able to pick up any gear that you're looking for. By the time this podcast is out, we should have a full restock of the gis, as long as they're not sold out again. Later in the year, there'll be a couple of limited edition drops. Follow on Instagram as well, is at Coffee&Kimuras, no and. And yeah, you can get me on Instagram, Chris Brennan 13, and same on YouTube. Weekly vlogs every Saturday morning at 8 a.m.
Perfect, Chris. Thanks so much for the time.
No worries, thanks for having me.